we bring to you our next panel discussion, Investing Strategically for Marketing Agility. We have some amazing panelists in this session who are some of the best and most passionate marketing leaders in the business. So allow me to introduce you to the moderator for this panel discussion, our Senior Marketing Manager, Ankush Jasuja. He has over 10 years of experience in marketing, sales, and business development in the IT and engineering domain. Ankush is an expert in executing multiple marketing programs, resulting in pipeline creation, along with global marketing operations and support functions. He specializes in identifying market opportunities by monitoring industry trends and competitor strategies. So here's Ankush with our first panel discussion, Investing Strategically for Marketing Agility. Over to you, Ankush.
Thanks, Akansha, for that introduction. Great. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on the region from where you are joining us today. I'm so glad to be here, and we are about to kick things up a notch in this panel discussion titled Investing Strategically for Marketing Agility. So for the longer time, marketing agility has just been a buzzword for most of the organization and didn't really meant any sense to them. But then, as a while ago, Mr. Alok mentioned, along came the villain, the COVID, and the game changed. Marketing agility is a real thing. It's not just a trend or a fad. In fact, it's as old as an organizational agility. So if we need to spell or explain marketing agility in one line, I would say it's more about optimizing your activities according to the change in customer preferences, behavior, expectations, and that too quickly and efficiently. With that, we will be spending next half an hour talking about achieving marketing agility through customer centricity. We will understand what has changed, what's next, and how all this is going to impact our marketing investments. We have an amazing panel for this discussion today. Allow me to introduce them. To start with, I have Larry Stein, the principal consultant at Technology Marketing Strategy, an experienced marketing leader. Larry serves B2B SaaS companies with his expertise in the entire spectrum of marketing to bring forth the solutions and strategies that yield incredible results. His leadership role in 6 startups over past 20 years have resulted in 3 IPOs and 3 acquisitions. Thank you, Larry, for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you very much, Ankush.
Great. Next, we have Sarah Kinsey, Head of Marketing at GEM. Sarah is a B2B marketing and communication professional with 10 years of experience in her domain. Her expertise focuses on demand generation and managing digital marketing programs that elevates customer experiences. She is truly a data-driven profession who is experienced in developing programs for marketing automation using platforms such as Welcome aboard, Sarah. It's great to have you today here.
Thank you, Ankush. And Larry, it's so nice to see you again. Hi.
Great. Calling out our final panelist, we have Heather Watkin, Head of Growth Marketing at Impossible Foods. Heather is a strategical leader with more than a decade of experience in building world-class marketing organizations for higher growth technologies like Marketo and Optimizely. She's an experienced marketer who has a proven record of implementing high impact marketing transformation strategies across multiple organizations. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. I feel like we're walking into an NBA game. We got our walk-in song. Excited to be here. Yeah, long time. We're working with you guys for like 13 years, I think. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it's really good to see you all together here. So let's begin. So as we all know that, prior to this pandemic outbreak, many CMOs anticipated increasing their investment in areas like content marketing, event marketing technologies. While some of the CMOs are still looking to invest more in these avenues, many others have decided to pull back, shorten up their budgets because of the uncertainty which time holds for us. So this shift has been, differently for different departments across. But Larry, with this, my first question will be for you. If this pandemic has shown us anything, that is about how marketing teams need to adapt quickly with respect to the change in market foresee and the buyer behavior. So how do you think a marketing team can become incredibly agile and address these future challenges as they come our way along?
No, absolutely. And I think as we saw over the past year, we all had to pull the ripcord and make rapid change, right? All the physical events evaporated, everything went online, digital became an increasing focus, right? Then 4 months later, we were dealing with the digital fatigue. When I think about 2021, a few things come to me, but namely the buyer's journey, I believe, has been changed potentially forever, but certainly for this coming year. And what I mean by that is that, physical events are going to slowly return, right? But what's happened is that our buyers now have learned and expect a complete online journey where they can get, engage, and completely find all the information they want in an easy to find pattern, right? And so we've got to meet that expectation. Mm-hmm. Secondly, their expectations have risen. So all of us have been stuck, but now are using online apps, right? Everything from a teledoc, Instacart, right? I mean, we started way back with Uber, Amazon, Netflix. We just expect in that experience, that B2C experience, to click, point, and then poof, we get our answers and our results, so that the expectations are higher. So as I think about that, how do we facilitate an environment where the buyer journey now has higher expectations and is expected also to be more completely online? So I come through with 3 areas where I would invest in 2021 to meet that changed buyer behavior. The first is deep and relevant content. I think, and I am guilty of this, how many times have we created the 10-page visual white paper where it's just us in product marketing who don't really live the life of the persona and the end user, and we create this. And I think when our personas consume this content, they find it lacking, right? It's not deep. What we need is deeply relevant content that helps them, right? So, we want them to tune into our channel, right? And to listen to us. So we need to produce content that they find informative, useful, helpful, right? So whether that is code snippets, showing them, even if we do data analytics and data prep, maybe we show them in Excel how to do manipulations with pivot tables, right? We're helping them now with the problems they have right away to build a relationship for ongoing content and engagement. So number 1, deep, relevant, helpful content. Number 2 would be smart sales outreach. I love my BDRs. The BDRs give life to all marketing programs, right? But every call we get that's an inbound cold call, right? That was not requested, right? That doesn't uplift our day. And we say, oh, I'm so glad you called. I was just waiting, right? Rather, can we take those BDR calls and actually uplift them and actually make them helpful? Can we increase their level of performance so that they truly understand the needs, wants, challenges, and they can intelligently interact with our prospects and make that a helpful call, right? Where they could have a meaningful engagement. So investing in the BDR team and raising their skill set would be area number 2. And the third area that I would look at is product experience, right? As marketers, we're here claiming, our product is better than your status quo. Whatever you're doing today, it could be better by using us. Well, we need to show them. And what I would encourage in 2021 is we think outside the box. We're probably already doing, right? We have explainer videos. We probably have, a 20-minute product demo tour online, a weekly demo, right? All of these things. There's a few areas I think we can be creative. One that we use together, actually, I used it when I worked with Sarah, right? We can create instant instances of our product, right? Click a button and give an live instance of your product up on the web that they can play with right now, fully deployed, ready to go, right? It takes a bunch of work, but could be an interesting experience, right? Or if you've got a very wide, broad product, can you take pieces of it and make them into effectively selective freemium offers to let somebody download and use, taste, maybe even pay for a very small portion of your product that then builds them into that longer term, right? Also, a lot of work, right? It would take effort. Or going old school, the last one I'll give as a tip would be a screenshot tour, right? I love the screenshot tours, right? Just take people through their use cases and how they would use your product, step, step, step. Tell them on each slide what it is, right? And then they can self-pace, go through and really experience it. So just think about product experiences and letting that customer have that online customer experience. So those would be my areas when I think about 2021 for investing for the new normal of the customer journey.
Absolutely, that makes sense, Larry. I think it would be more, if I say, it would be more an intent-based marketing driven on the data analytics, which we could derive across. That would be, precise about what you have been speaking, and that's the future. You're very, very right about it.
True. Yeah, intent's only going to make things better. The better we understand people, the better we can then, our prospects, the better we can feed them information. Absolutely correct. Agree 100%.
Great. So, Sarah, Heather, I'll also like to direct the same question for you both. What are your opinions about this? Specifically, if you would like me to repeat the question, I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, I can jump in and just put an exclamation point on something that Larry said. Larry, you were talking about the importance of really deep content that likely our audiences are interested in now. And just to share that is what my team has been experiencing, not just in 2020. I think we were seeing success with that even earlier than 2020. But what happened with our team, which goes maybe the opposite of what some other teams experienced, is yes, in-person events, of course, faded away. But we experienced that our live events became, our virtual live events became way, way more important. Not only webinars, but other avenues of events as well. The virtual networking events, events like this, like virtual events where there's engagement and networking and things like that can happen. And so we actually did way more events in 2020 than we did in 2019, to the point that my most important hire in 21 was another events person, which we just hired. She starts in a week. I'm so excited. And so I think what has happened with us, what we had to do, and the reason that it worked, I think was two things. One is, Larry, what you said, the content in our events is very, very buyer focused or persona focused. It's thinking about what do they need to hear, what's going to help them do their jobs better. It's not about our product, though of course our product helps them do their jobs better, but the content is 100% with the end user in mind and what they need to be successful at their jobs. And then the other thing that I'm so impressed with my marketing team in doing is, we have many different pieces of technology to help these different events be successful. It's not just one. So we've got a couple different webinar platforms. We use Zoom for the networking meetings, even up to 100 people. We the video on and the unmute works when there's a social group who knows how to use Zoom. And then also technology like Bevy, like what we're using today. All of these different pieces of technology have value and deliver it a little bit differently, and that's important. And so what was important for our team in scaling this was attending a whole bunch of events and seeing for ourselves what works well and what didn't work so well, and then making sure that we're using the right thing for the right content for the right audience.
Yeah, definitely, Sarah. So I think, even from the future perspective, it would be more on the both sides, like, physical events with an open gateway to the virtual platforms also for other organizations. That has actually increased the global reach for the audience to join into the events which they feel are relevant.
Yeah, I'm really excited about events in the future, which is not something I would have said a year and a half ago, but I'm really excited for how it's going to be available for marketers and audiences to learn.
Definitely. So Heather, how has it been for you, when it comes to increase the agility for your team with respect to the challenges?
Yeah, it's been a wild year. So one, I've been doing SaaS a long time, and I've definitely gotten steeped in the Marketo like demand gen funnel. This is just how you do it. And then now I sell food and I sell burgers. And one really cool thing is we're taking the tech way to sell and breaking the food service system. So one, like even how we approach our work is completely different than how anybody's used to buying product. Traditionally, you buy food from your distributor and through your broker, and we're breaking that model and selling direct to our customer, which is very, very unique. So for us in 2020, I mean, the restaurant industry was hit the hardest. So one of I think the most proud things that I'm excited about is it wasn't like, let's take a pause and like, okay, we don't have events anymore. I mean, the whole industry was shattered. So we had a lot of experimentations. We used design thinking and prototyping in our marketing work, and we really shook things up. So one of the first things that happened during the pandemic is obviously all the restaurants were closing, but they were desperate to survive, and the government changed the regulations where you could actually sell your kitchen goods directly to consumers. So it was food service direct to consumer, and we pushed hard on that opportunity. So a lot of people were actually able to keep their doors open by selling our retail or our food service patties directly to their customers, because we weren't in retail. We were just getting started in retail. So actually that was a huge boon to our customers, and they saw a lot of success in building meal kits and just really experimental. We also tried our own virtual kitchen through DoorDash. We stood up an e-commerce site. So like we just went crazy with how do we know this is bad. Everything is kind of shut down, but what can we try and what might work out? Some of those things failed. The virtual kitchen is rough. And the e-commerce has actually been super successful for us. And even FS2C is still something that's living on to this day. So I think of as a marketer, how can we do things in a completely different way that shakes it up and surprises people and is interesting? And I think that's just the hard thing right now is everybody's exhausted. I don't care about work. We got wildfires, right? Like it's, we can't do the old things that we're used to. We have to really shake things up, and it keeps it fun for the team. Like our team, was really proud of the work that they did, and it kept them motivated to work really hard. So I love that more experimentation mindset and trying new things. And now that we're going into 2021, I have no idea what this year is going to look like. So we just have to continue pushing. If, maybe vaccines happen faster and restaurants open faster, and we're going to have a whole new set of challenges that now like foot on the gas. How do we market faster and how do we hire faster than we've ever done before? So I think it's just being open and listening and being patient to where we are in this moment. I mean, one of the things that happened over Q4 was we got a ton of interest in selling our product, and then everyone went temporarily closed because of COVID restrictions in their state. So us being like, we knew that we're not beating up on ourselves. We're not mad at sales about it. We're not mad at marketing. We just know that that's the reality of where we are, and our business just has to stay flexible. So I think that's the most important thing is patience and prototyping and celebrating the wins, because this is a weird time in our lives for personally, professionally, everything. So that's my 2 cents.
Definitely. That completely makes sense, Heather. The overall, I think, even from the points you discussed, the cloud kitchen has really boomed up, and that might have an advantage for you, at the point when COVID hit ground into the, across the globe. So the cloud kitchen concept might have provided that edge. Again, the virtual things coming into picture, even from the food perspective. So with that, let's move on to the next part, which is about upskilling the marketing teams. Right? Even Larry mentioned about the upskilling part previously when he was just talking a while ago. So it has been very important to keep your marketing team on the edge of skill proficiency and innovation. That is very essential at this point of time. And the basic logic behind this have been that the digital technology in the marketing field is evolving much faster than any other part of the business. With that, Sarah, I'd like to know your thoughts on how a CMO or a head of marketing, develop these skills for their team to keep up with the rapid change in technology and the buyer behavior? What you think would be the important areas and how to implement those?
Yeah, I love this question because my first reaction to it is you can't keep up. Like, you just can't. And to maybe put an exclamation point on why I say that is, I remember being at a conference back, I think it was 2012, and I saw that slide that probably all of us have seen dozens of times now, that shows the MarTech landscape. And I remember at that point there was, I don't know, 150 or 200 logos on that slide. And I remember thinking, whoa, I wonder how I can know what all those businesses do if I'm supposed to know about that. And then a couple years later, I saw the exact same slide again, and there was 1,500 on it. And I remember sitting in the conference, and everybody around me was kind of in shock at how many logos were on there. And the sentiment from the presenter at the time was, my goodness, look how many pieces of MarTech there are out there. It's definitely time for consolidation. Like, expect that to come in the next couple of years. I just looked up to see what that slide looks like today, and I'm sure there's several versions of it, but I looked it up a couple days ago, and now that slide still exists, but there's 8,000 pieces of MarTech on there. So it's not possible really for somebody to stay up to date with all the pieces of MarTech. And so that's why when I think about this question, I break it up into two pieces. One is, what are just maybe table stakes skills that I think every marketer and leader person probably needs to have. And those are, the first one is just the skill of staying focused and knowing what your priorities are. If you are really super clear on what your business priorities are, your team priorities are, what you're working towards, that's not easy. Like, it's easy to say it, but it's really hard to do. It's something that I think I always am working on, and so is my team. But that's the first skill, which has nothing to do with technology, I realize. And then the second skill, which Larry, I think I learned this from you, is to be super, super data driven. And if marketing teams can have those two skills, then those two things together can lead to being, for teams and individuals, knowing where should they spend the time and the money investigating and learning new pieces of technology. And so once those things are set up, then there's kind of the second bucket of how can we learn? How can we upskill? What's the right way to do it? And in that bucket, I like to think about that in three different ways. Again, one of the most important ways is for us to all be developing our network, because what we can hear and learn from our network is supremely valuable. Heather and Larry, both of you are in my network. I think I have called both of you in my past to ask you questions. And it's been highly valuable to me to ask you, what's working for you? What did you try that didn't work? Those kinds of networks and ways to learn are so key for everybody, regardless of the level that you're at. And I encourage all of my team to find people or to ask me to introduce them to people to help expand the network. So that's one way to upskill. The other way is, once you have figured out what has changed maybe in buyer behavior that has led you to realize that you need to investigate new tech, or you need to change something and you need to learn how to do it, then another way to do it is to go figure out which companies in that giant PDF of 8,000 different companies, which of those companies are the leaders for the area you're focusing in, and go sit through 3 or 4 different demos. That's a great way to learn. SDRs or BDRs, they're great at teaching you what the technology does and what you should know about it, what questions to ask, what features are common. Use that. It's a great way to learn. And by the way, those first 2 things that I said, they're free. It takes time, so I guess it's not free, but that's why I say you got to be super prioritized. And then the third thing, a lot of companies, and I'm very fortunate that GEM, my company, does have a really nice L&D budget, learning and development budget, for every single individual. So then outside of those 2 ways, which I would argue that those are some of the best 2 ways, but outside of those first 2, if you have any budget, spend it. It's your benefit. It's a really nice perk that you should take advantage of, and spend it to go to conferences, spend it to find trainings that cost money from expert masterclass teachers, and learn new skills, whether it is learning a new piece of software, whether it is learning something, a new function of marketing that you haven't done before. Do it, take advantage of it, but only within the umbrella of staying focused and data-driven.
Definitely, Sarah. I couldn't agree more with that. So basically, you need to be very clear, do your homework, know what is your priority, and then choose which skill you would like to go for. You mentioned that you had a conversation with Larry and Heather regarding what worked for them and what didn't work for them. So, any one of you who would like to tell what actually worked for you at that instant?
Oh, well, on a personal basis, I love sharing failures, right? Where you look and explain, oh, this was an awesome idea. Look at how beautiful it was. And then you can explain, and it fell flat, right? And so I think we need to celebrate that, right? Demonstrate it, share it, and then learn from it so that we don't step in that same hole again, right? So I mean, that would be the one thing that I would offer, and certainly. And it's right back at Sarah. I mean, I've learned from Sarah on looking, in terms of being data driven and looking at those ways about how can we see, things that come to mind are attribution, right? Attribution is a, never ending experiment of data and learning to understand what's working and what's not. And then looking at the model of your attribution itself and typically innovating on that, because we continue to find that while we thought it was great 6 months ago, now it's lacking, right? We're going to make it better. So it's that constant set of improvement. Right.
And what's your take, Heather, here? What do you think about? Maybe you can also share your experiences, or Larry told that he likes to personally share the failures first. It's your choice.
No. I actually was thinking about this question in a little bit different way. So how do we skill build our team was like the overarching theme. And yes, we've got to keep on top of technology. Yes, we need to learn new skills. But I think this year taught me it's not just about checking boxes for your career, but also, especially as a manager, our teams went through tremendous amount of strains. Maybe their partner was fired from work. We had the unrest with George Floyd. We had, wildfires in the West where ash was falling outside of our doors for a week straight. And we're pretending that none of this is existing in a working environment. And it's frankly, I think it's ridiculous for us to push so hard when we have all these externalities happening at the same time, and pretending it's not there. So I think one of the things that I really focused on, and I think Impossible in general focused on, is how do we create this space that people can get healthy? Like, they can't show up them full selves and push themselves and learn if they, someone in their family just passed away. So myself and my team have been really focusing on how do we create that space when they need it, and how can we have more reflection. And the other areas that we've been really investing in is we're working in a virtual environment. Who knows when this lifts? It might lift soon. And who knows when this will happen again, right? So we need to build the strengths of how to work virtually with one another and how to work together and collaborate in a virtual world. And it's so hard because we're so trained that we have these interpersonal relationships. We build memories with one another in our work environments, and we don't have those opportunities. We're not traveling together to a party to go to Salesforce, Dreamforce. We just don't have those options right now. So how do we build that and build the skills even for our managers to be more thoughtful about how to create that connection and interpersonal strengths on our team? So some of the things we've invested in is we just did a big workshop on insights discovery to understand our communication styles. And I'm a bright yellow sunshine person where, and I talk a lot, and there's people on my team that are more blue and analytical, and they can't deal with my excitement and my brainstorms and my ideas. They want more, processing time. So those were really helpful in building skills and the communication styles. We're also doing a series of improv trainings with people too, to help build that interpersonal connection. And then speaker series on really serious topics like racism. So we've had a lot of speakers come into our workplace talking about biases in the workplace and racism, and even how we hire. I mean, all of us are at fault at some point on some of these issues. So I think it's outside of technology. It is how to be a better human being, and it's how to be more thoughtful and empathetic with your coworkers during this crazy time. We don't know when this will change.
Could I jump
in? Go ahead.
Larry, Heather, I'm so glad that you brought this up. Thank you for bringing it up. I think it's irresponsible for us to not acknowledge that, and I'm just so grateful that you did. my company, Gem, has been doing a lot of the same things that you mentioned. And one of the things that I have really appreciated is the space I've been given the space from my company to live my life here at home as I need to live it. And if that means my days need to be short, if that means that I need to not go to a meeting because I'm overwhelmed and I need to go outside for a walk instead, that's okay. And because my company has made that okay for me, then I hope that myself as a leader, I've made that okay to my team. Just a couple of examples here of how I think this has changed in the last year. This is such a small thing, I realize, but as I was getting ready for today, I was trying to figure out, like, what do I need to do to clean up my background? You know, this right here, this TV was kind of in the way, so I moved it just a little bit. And then I don't know if you can see, but I've got, you know, these rainbows here that my kids brought me, and they're not down there so that you can't see them. They're down there because that's the height that they can tape them up on the wall for. And I was thinking, oh, I wonder if I should move those. And then I thought, absolutely not. No way. Like, this is my home. And in fact, I've been wondering if they were going to come in and interrupt, and I encourage them to. And this is just a small thing, but I guess I just want to call out, because Heather, thank you for bringing it up, that it's a crazy hard year, and you don't have to have it all together. You don't have to always be focused and data driven. You should try in your professional life, but it's really hard. So anyway, I just thank you very much, Heather.
No, definitely, Sarah. That completely makes sense.
And I'll just jump in. I think, Heather, thank you for raising that. I think it's about meeting people where they are and helping people through. And as I've always seen in my life, doing the right thing ends up being the right thing for so many ways, right? You know, doing good means, you know, good. It's just, you know, what this will all result in, just to bring it full circle, all of these activities, it's going to mean greater employee retention. It's going to mean greater commitment to the organization, right? So let's not also miss that we're doing the right thing and meeting our employees where they're at, right, allows them. And the only thing I would also offer in on this sort of this sort of skilling and meeting and supporting is the fact that, you know, giving people that opportunity to learn and grow, to say, you know what, we're going to try to decrease some of your responsibilities here to allow you to grow. That does a couple things. It reduces burnout, it reduces some of those challenges, and it gives them an opportunity to shine, right? Which is great, right? And gives them that opportunity. So absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunities here.
No, Larry, absolutely. I can agree more, you know, with you over this. Actually, the next things which, you know, we were going to cover, we are yet to cover is virtual burnout only. And with what Heather mentioned, you know, it is very important to take care of the mental health as well during this, you know, physical world where we are engaged throughout the day. So that's a very good initiative to take care of that as well from the organization perspective. So moving ahead, as I already told, you know, what I was looking to discuss further was a virtual burnout part. So you already mentioned that for last 1 year, everything has been virtual: workplace, meetings, conferences, even the doctor appointments. And here, you know, the role of platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, they have actually made our life easier, much easier. But do you think that the collaborative avenue like marketing, there have been a time when you actually feel that we had enough of this virtual world, virtual things around us, specifically when it comes to scenarios where it might be a small inquiry or a query or a discussion, which could have ended in a minute or maybe 5 minutes if it was into a physical world. But due to this virtual presence across and this distances between people, it takes like ages to get it resolved. And that's when I personally feel the impact of virtual burnout, right? So with that, I have seen a lot of organizations, as we are stepping out of the COVID era, you know, are also implementing back the traditional marketing methodologies along with this digital part into their strategies, which have been working for few and, you know, haven't been working very well for like a couple of them. And one of the reasons could be that the new millennial marketers, they have completely adopted in last 1 year with the virtual platforms and the MarTech side, more compatible with that. And get a bit about the traditional marketing methods. 1 year is a long gap, actually, right? So with that, Heather, my question is for you, that as you already told that your company has been doing a lot, to get people support and not feel them the effect of virtual burnouts. So how is it has been like, have you implemented any traditional marketing methodologies into your current plan where most of the things are digital, and how it has worked for you? What are the results, and what do you foresee ahead for that?
It's actually really interesting because we tried a few virtual marketing tactics like webinars and virtual events. And our product is physical. You have to eat it to believe it. So that's it adds a whole nother level of complexity. So some of the things that we've done that have been super successful, one is postcards. That works still. We are able, and we're fortunate because restaurateurs and people that are working in the restaurant industry are still in their location. So I can send direct mail to people, whereas a lot of people in SaaS, they don't know where these people live. So that's been really successful for us for driving sample requests. And that's part of our demo process. Is you request a sample, we send you free shipment, you cook with the product, we call you and give you menu ideas, et cetera. So it's similar to a sales process. The other thing we broke down is people are exhausted. They don't want to be talking to a sales rep. Like, they're dealing with their business shutting down. So we created a self-service model. Instead of you having to get a hold of us and us ship you product, you actually can check out yourself and send yourself a free product. We put a bunch of stuff in the back end to make sure there's not fraudulent activities, but like, we're trying to get ourselves out of this whole process, which is digitizing. And then the other thing that's worked that is really interesting is folks in the restaurant industry are not at their computers. They don't sit here on their computer. They don't even have probably like Wi-Fi. They just don't. So we cannot use traditional methods. They're also not reading blogs. They're not like looking for Google for how to best technology for marketing. Like, they just don't do that. So so one of the things we're trying is audio. So maybe we'll record a webinar, but we're going to put it in an audio format because they're on their feet, they're cooking. So we're thinking of how do we tell our story in ways that will be best for that audience and meet them where they are, instead of just trying to force them. And maybe I think this is applicable to SaaS too. Like, moms are teaching their kids, and so are dads. Like, let's be real. So are dads. They're teaching their kids in their home. Like, how can we give them materials to be more successful there? Like, let's think outside of the box of how we can be adding value to their life. And we're creating coloring books for kids. We created bags with coloring books that we gave to customers to add to their delivery takeout. So I think just trying new things and meeting people where they are and trying new bold ideas that are not about us, it's about them, is the way to go. Yeah.
Definitely, Heather. I think that's a perfect example. The last one you mentioned about, giving along the coloring books. It's more about the sentiment marketing, which, is embedded with the digital part. That's like near to the perfection I could think about. So Sarah and Larry, what's your take here? How do you think, 2021, is it going to be amalgamation of traditional plus digital path, or you would see a shift, a more inclined towards the a modern digital marketing, or back to the previous traditional marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, what what Heather said resonated with me in the respect that I was speaking earlier about product experience. And first of all, as somebody who's eaten Impossible Foods, it's freaking awesome, right? And you just, and it's right, you have to taste it. So I totally get that challenge, because all of a sudden, I remember the first time when I tasted it, I was like, oh wait, this is different. This is not your veggie burger, right? And it's something very different. And so that product, I think that product experience and that experiential way is really important. And obviously in Heather's world, it's very difficult. It's more difficult because it's physical, right? In the SaaS world, it's easier, right? And we need to work on that. So I would just absolutely agree. I think digital will continue to be. I think the physical events and physical channels will be difficult and come back slowly. I am certainly a big proponent of technologies experiential technologies, let's say either like a Sendoso, right, or mail-based campaigns and programs, so we can automate physical mail. It's harder now with people at home, right? People don't want to give out their home addresses, so there are some challenges there. And then it's trying to make the virtual like physical, meaning we talk about the burnout of Zooms and, oh my gosh, I have to be on again, and how do I look, right? Am I okay, right? And all that. But if we can somehow create some type of, recently one of my clients had a virtual wine tasting, right? So, right, you're sending out bottles of wine, people are getting together, and there's somebody guiding you through a wine tasting that you would have if you were together. So we're trying to replicate what would have been physical to the online. So that type of innovation and creativity from an earlier conversation.
Right. So I foresee, it's going to be hybrid. What I could, judge from the conversations which we are having, hybrid is the future ahead. Sarah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have just a little bit to add to both what Heather and Larry said. It's definitely easier for SaaS companies, and for my company, our audience are talent acquisition professionals. So your recruiters, talent sourcers, people like that. These people are at their computers all day. They were pre-COVID. They are still today. So I think what has been important for us as a marketing team to remember is that they're still doing their jobs. We still need to meet them where they're at, which is in front of their computer. They're extra busy, most likely. And so being helpful though still applies there. And so for us, I think that has meant taking it back to Larry, what you said at the beginning of make sure your content is really useful and value add to them. I think that has continued to work for us in the traditional channels. And that's why events has continued to work so well for us. And then Heather, you said one more thing that I wanted to mention and now it has left me. What was it? Oh, shoot. Oh, I know what it was. No, sorry, I did remember. So what we have, in the higher parts of the funnel where we're generating leads and we're getting those new MQLs and maybe getting them into early opportunity stages, that isn't all that different for us as it was before. There's definitely some differences, but where we've had to be more experimental is how can we keep the conversations going, and that's where we have found physical mailers helpful. How can we get those the people that have started the conversation, but maybe they've backed off a little bit. Things like the virtual wine events are things that can re-engage, get them into a Zoom meeting with a very few number of people so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. And then we are super, super conscientious about how do we keep the conversation going, because there's nothing worse than getting into a Zoom call with not very many people where everybody has that plastered smile on their face and they're trying to think of something to say and it's really hard. So we've tried to be very conscientious about how do we make sure that doesn't happen? Who owns the conversation? Who's going to be the designated person to do that so that our guests don't have to take on that stress?
Even harder for you guys because anything I do is like a shock because they've never experienced that from a food service company before. But for you guys, like there is literal burnout. Like if you ask me to join one more webinar, I'm going to blow my gasket, right? So you have to be surprise and delight at a different level. And so I would even say it's harder on B2B SaaS because there's so much saturation of the same tactics. So it has to be super special.
Yeah,
definitely. That was actually super interesting. Thank you. Well, looking at the time constraint, I think we need to move to Q&A part. I already see a couple of questions raining into the Q&A box. To start with, I'll leave it open forum for any of you to pick up, which you find best suit for you to answer up. So the first one here is from Patrick. He's saying that what is the best way to be testing the relevance during the campaign?
When I think of relevance, I think of response or engagement rates, right, as the primary way to engage that, right? That if something's relevant, if I look at something and say, wow, this is really relevant, I'm going to engage in some way. And giving enough time to measure that engagement depending upon what the outreach is and the response, right? You might be putting out, let's say, using a personal example and a hobby of mine, YouTube videos that I've been watching for a while on my hobby that then finally 2 months later, just now led to a purchase, right? And so, it's just giving that, giving it full enough time to see that response.
Definitely. Anything to add on from Sarah, you or Heather on your side to this? No, definitely, Larry. I think even it would be more based upon what the CTA you are keeping for your campaigns, because the action which you actually have intent to get from the campaign would be more relevant to measure what is expected and how it is going to be. Well, coming to the next question. So I could see actually a couple of them. So I'll just combine those up, into a single question. So people have asked about, how do you actually monitor the customer behavior trends? And that is something, some part of the trends have been forced upon people and something which they are actually interested in. That's a tough one, actually. So how can you differentiate between that, measuring actual customer behavior trends and working accordingly in your marketing plans? Heather, if you would like to go with that, because I think in your case, with food being the prime industry, and that too into the vegan food, it has been, I think it must have been a quite observation at your end to judge how to engage people based on, their behavior analytics and other parts.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing though is we're both a consumer brand and a B2B brand, so it's hard to disseminate some of the data between who's a consumer and a B2B person. The area that we're getting the most data from and that is pretty robust is the industry pubs. So there's a few data sources. It's so different than SaaS. It's like Data Essentials on PD. There's so much data out there that's really overwhelming.
Right.
And we've been keeping a really close eye on it. So one of the things that we saw that was really exciting is we outsold in Q4, even though it was a bad quarter, we actually outsold our competitors in the industry at large and how many net new doors came on and Selling Impossible. So that was super exciting. But then we're also seeing different industry trends and reports that like adding new menu items is not important to them right now. I mean, it's really restarting and remarketing their business and thinking of innovative ways to actually change their model to begin with. So we just have to keep a close eye on all that movement all the time. It's definitely complex. And it's really fun, I guess. But it's different than what I've experienced. And it's not our first party data, unfortunately. It's all third party data, which is what we're trying to crack too. We're trying to take that relationship directly, which is usually not owned by the manufacturer. It's always owned by the distributor or the broker or the industry, like the POS systems. So we're trying to build that data for sure.
Definitely. Great. So the next one.
I might just add on that is we haven't spoken a lot about the data platforms, right? So when we talk about customer trends, I was thinking actually about a company actually where Sarah and I work together and we had this wonderful data analyst. And what we're doing now in that interim is extracting data from a variety of sources, CRM, marketing automation, et cetera, and even third-party data, ingesting it into a data warehouse, data lake, and then providing the ability to run analytics on that data, right? So when we want to see trends, let's take a cut of all of our customers and then look at activity across of our customers or our target account prospects. And then, it just gives us that ability to view changes, trends, so that back to our theme about marketing agility, right? That we can then recognize, let's say, intent-based, marketing. Oh, we see that these 100 top accounts have expressed interest or intent, right? We can be agile and execute a campaign on that. So I'm not certain if that was possibly part of the intent of the question, but certainly something that helps us become more actionable. And it's actually a lot less expensive now with the tools that are available.
No, Larry, that definitely makes sense.
I've got one more way to do this too is talk to your customers, actually have phone calls and conversations with them and hear what they're saying and what's different. This isn't something that my team does all that frequently, but our product management team does it all the time. And we stay really in close touch with our product team. Anytime we're concepting a new white paper or a new event that we're going to have speakers at, we talk to them and our sales team. I mean, the sales team is talking to so many people who are users or want to be users, or we hope want to be users of our product. And it's a wealth of knowledge that they do in their job. So marketers can just remember that there's that pool of information and frequently go get it to learn what might be changing. I think it's a great way to do it.
Definitely, that makes complete sense. Well, the next one here, we have one more question, actually a couple of them, but I just picked another one. So here our viewer wants to understand that, has this pandemic made customer service conversions easier or difficult for you?
Sorry, customer service conversions?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means really.
Okay.
Is possibly the question getting at looking at upsell and cross-sell opportunities within an existing account? So are our customer service representatives working and appropriately looking for the land and expand, right? We've landed. How do we continue to grow and expand? I'll just jump in. We just launched at a client launch some customer expand programs and strategies. I mean, step one is getting a handle on your data, knowing who your customers are and making sure that that's easily accessible and there, right? So that we can differentiate offers to our existing users. And I hate the term better ideas, please educate me. But the people who are currently actively engaged with our product versus other people at that same account company who might be a net new, different, or expansion play, right? We want to make sure that we can differentiate to communicate appropriately with those, because then we can then run effective, whether it's campaigns, outreach, sales outreach, et cetera. So customer service, I find, just in my experience, has been a delight, right? They're there to make our customers successful, and partnering with them and supporting their efforts. I've just found nothing but great success in working with them.
Right, Larry. Well, I can see a lot of cues, but I'll pick this last one, for us before we wind up this session. So that's a practical problem which all of the marketers face. Here, Patrick has asked that the best way to bridge the gap between media and creative teams throughout the campaign. I can understand where it is coming from, Patrick. So any of you, as you all are part of strategies, can go ahead and answer this. What has been working for you to bridge up this gap?
It's hard. I agree with you. It's a great question. For my team, we're still a fairly small team, so it's a little bit easier for us to all stay connected. But one thing that has been of value to us, which is not possible, I realize, for everybody, but we brought our creative team in-house this year because we did want to expand more into those creative conversations and really push on the creativity, which is really hard to do if the creative team isn't sitting right there and hearing all the other inputs that are going into the decisions. That's not really a very helpful answer, I fear, but I just want to acknowledge, I hear you, it's hard. And that's one solution, is when you can make sure that the creative and the media buying team are really close together.
Definitely, that is the toughest part. Larry, would you like to add anything here?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is just share a recent experience, is that sometimes the outcomes aren't what we expect. So it goes back to the data-driven comments we made before, that we tested beautifully formatted HTML email versus virtually plain text email in our nurtures, right? One which reflects our new branding, our positioning. It was, it made my heart sing. And of course, what won out, plain text, is time and time again, right? A second example, is we're running programs on LinkedIn, and the ads that performed the best were visually almost embarrassing, right? That you would look and say, really, this is an expression of us and our brand and how we go out there, but it crushed some of the other alternatives. So my recommendation in that collaboration is experimentation, right? Is just continue to ideate, continue to experiment, put it out there, and then the data wins, and we try to figure out and learn from the data. What is it telling us, and how can we best interpret this and learn from it?
Definitely, data is a king at any point of time. You could get maximum insights. Heather, anything from your side to add on to this question?
Well, I mean, I'm in a place where I'm learning like crazy. I mean, being a pretty subversive, one of the fastest growing brands in the world from a consumer side is very interesting, because our creative team is so much into the consumer, especially like millennial Gen Z mindset. And some of their language is like playing off of sexual innuendos, which is not appropriate for a B2B audience. Let's just be real. So I have a challenge of how do we educate and push our creative team to still be bold, but not so bold for B2B. And they're not performance marketers. They're not UX marketers. Like, so there's a lot of just how do we teach and educate, and then maybe support with external agencies, maybe a UX design agency, or maybe we take their creative and our media agency can edit it in a way that's for performance. So this is one of our biggest challenges that we're still playing with. And I think it's exacerbated because we're such a consumer brand, as well as trying to sell product directly to B2B audiences, which is tricky and fun. I mean, it's very fun. I like to be edgy, but some edginess is a little bit, even for me, who has the filthiest mouth, is too much.
No, that's really interesting. It's, the learning curve never stops, and you keep on learning from the new experiments you conduct across. Definitely. So with this question, answer to this question, I think we had a very healthy discussion today. A lot for each of us to absorb, specifically from my perspective and from the audience perspective. I could guess that, and think upon in the journey ahead in 2021. So. For our audience, I'm sorry, there are a lot of questions which are unanswered, but I'll make sure that our team reaches back to you on your specific email addresses with the right answers to those questions. And Larry, Sarah, Heather, thank you so much for being with us today here. It has been an absolute delight talking to you people. And thanks to our audience as well, for being so patient and being so engaged to drop so many questions across. With that, I'll hand over to Akansha further.
Thank you guys, and thank you so much. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Larry, Sarah, Heather, Ankush. This panel discussion has been super insightful, to say the least. And well, you surely upped the ante for the event, I'd say. And all this excitement deserves a coffee break. I'm sure you'd all agree with me. So we'll resume all the marketing fun in just 10 minutes. It's what time? My time zone says 12:20 right now. Let's be back in 10 minutes, guys. See ya.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.